Next. Welcome back in Renegades of Puck podcast. Headphones on. That means it's time for a special guest. The one and only Zack McCann joining the show, jumping in the trenches here at the bunker once again. A very unique and special, we'll say clandestine location at this time for his appearance on the show. ZMC, welcome back in. How are you?
Just when you thought it was safe to go back to the trenches, here I am, sir. Good, man. How are you?
ZMC. I'm fantastic, and it looks like you're doing pretty well. I'm not going to ask you to reveal your secret location right now, but I will say I think its code name is Paradise.
Hey, I'm so far south, they'd make a hell of a hockey team here. So
Don't get the Canadian media riled up about this. All right, listen, last time we talked, there were some positive things to talk about. The Predators were about to go into one of the most entertaining back-to-back series that they've had all season long with the San Jose Sharks. They also managed to click off a 5-game winning streak as a part of that 2-game set. So ZMC, we talked about some small and positive gains, and it looked like up until the end of that 5-game win streak, the Predators were really making some very positive strides. What were your feelings, your thoughts during that particular streak?
it ain't exactly complicated. Scoring goals is cool, and it's cool when you do it often. And it was one of those rare cases where you saw the potential, that tantalizing potential that this entire squad has when they are all clicking, all firing on all cylinders. And it makes games like, the Canucks game last night a little bit more frustrating when the puck doesn't fall your way.
Oh, absolutely. And see, that's exactly where I was going to go to next. For as much goodwill as the 5-game win streak built up and the advantageous schedule that the Predators suddenly found themselves in, some games with San Jose, Anaheim, Buffalo coming up, there was a lot of talk about taking advantage of the opportunity. I think that's why people might have been burnt up so badly by the loss in Anaheim and then following last night against Vancouver at home. The Preds just really couldn't get the final step done last night. They were all over the rink. They were buzzing. They were getting plenty of shots on goal, but at the end, they just couldn't get it past Demko the number of times needed to make it count in this one.
What a wonderful microcosm of the frustration that was last year's playoff series. I thought last night you could have thrown that game in the series and it would have been right at home. They looked like they were dominant for stretches of play. As soon as the Canucks took an early lead, almost immediate answer from secondary scoring with Tommy Novak, which you love. But then again, it was just, it could do everything and hit everything but the net.
Oh, absolutely. And it was tough. And UC Saros looking for that bounce back game for everyone who has their confidence shaken in the starting netminder of the Nashville Predators. We're not hearing that from the coaching staff. We're not hearing that from above the coaching staff. UC Saros overall, very light workload, had a bit of a bounce back game. I thought he was overall pretty decent. At least he was not the problem against the Vancouver Canucks. That was certainly true.
I would agree. Look, goalies are weird creatures, and like any other player, they're going to have slumps occasionally. It's just a testament to the body of work that UC Saros has had that we're seeing a slump. If we ever see them, it's usually early in the season. So seeing UC Saros struggle in January is certainly a new thing. I don't think anyone expects it to become a habit or that his play is now on the decline or anything like that. Obviously, you're going to have some reactionaries who are going to say, oh my gosh, but we just traded a goaltender, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, we saw how that turned out last Thursday. So looking at things from that lens, I'm not worried about Saros. Do I think that going and representing his country in the Four Nations face-off is probably going to do him a world of good, get him, playing with a different squad? Do I wish he had the time off? Maybe. But at the same time, I think he's a goalie who likes to play his way through struggles. And you've seen that time and time again.
And getting some good positive mentality and some good positive experiences, locker room, rink, game time, stuff like that, it could benefit him in the long run and down the stretch. I don't really see any harm to it other than perhaps him getting worn down a little bit. But if the Predators aren't in the playoff picture, what does that matter whatsoever? You're not going to be riding your Vezina caliber goaltender for the final 20 straight starts of the season if you're not in a playoff spot, regardless. And the Predators have retooled the entire goaltending room for the organization organization starting in this past off season. So yes, they did just move someone recently, but they've retooled that position from top down and made the declaration with the signing and lengthy contract to UC Saros that it's UC Saros at the top of the mountain and everyone else is going to file in behind him over the next couple of seasons.
And you know what is interesting, though? UC Saros is a similar quality that Pecorine had. Both of them need upward pressure to be playing at their best. And I don't think it's coincidence that you're seeing at UC Saros, after being deemed the man, Eustace Onanen comes in and has been playing pretty lights out. I mean, really excellent play from Onanen. And now we see Saros struggle a bit. I think if you see Onanen get a couple games, Saros will get out of whatever funk he's in, and pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I had said that same exact point about Onanen a couple of times now, that he's going to pressure Saros in all the right ways, competitively from within. And that's exactly what goaltenders need. It's good to be the top guy on the team, but you always need to have somebody pushing you, and you need to have a good teammate and a good goalie partner there to help push you a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised if Onanen starts to get a little bit more time if Saros' game doesn't turn around. ZMC, you mentioned the Four Nations tournament. You and I have not talked about it. I think this might only be the second time I've even mentioned it here on the show, because I don't know. I feel like the media campaign makes me feel like this is really important. And I feel like the way that they're promoting it to death makes it sound really important. But ZMC, they've been trying to recapture the 1996 World Cup of Hockey in the 72 Summit Series every time they do something like this, and it never really works out. What is your level of interest? Yeah, what's your level of interest for this, man? Are you into it, or are you going to watch it? Like, what? How do you feel about the Four Nations? I'm honestly looking forward to taking some time off from covering hockey and watching hockey for a couple of days. I'm not that into this Four Nations thing at all.
I'm into it in the way that I love international play, and I think it's awesome when teams do, you have kind of those all-star teams based off of where they're from. The only argument you'll get from me is that the last World Cup of Hockey was awesome just due to this phenomenon that was Team North America. So not having that, or the Team Europe, definitely makes it a little less fun in my eyes. But there are so many Nashville Predators connections on these rosters that it does have me interested. The fact that we're going to see Victor Arvidsson and Philip Forsberg play together again, that's exciting. Matthias Ekholm back on the blue line with, Team Sweden. I mean, heck, you might as well just call Team Sweden Team Nashville at this rate with how many people are on that. Obviously, you've got Saros involved. You're going to have Gustav Nystrom, or excuse me, not Nystrom, Nyquist on Team Sweden as well. There's enough Preds connections where I will absolutely be tuning in for those Team Sweden games, as well as to see Saros play for Team Finland. Where you're not going to see any Nashville Predators are on Team USA or Team Canada, to be instance. And I do find it interesting, however, that Alex Pietrangelo was able to withdraw from the tournament. No rules apply like you have for the All-Star. So that really does tell you just how seriously the AHL is really taking this as well.
So I'm more interested now that you have articulated that point from a Nashville Predators perspective. Yes, there is some interesting things to watch, some prospects coming along the way, and some very important players in international hockey. So maybe you just pushed me into tuning into it a little more than I was going to in the first place, a little bit, because I do love the international game and going back and citing. I just watched the documentary again on the 96 World Cup and how that was quite possibly one of the most fun and exciting summers of my hockey life. And all I was doing was sitting in a dingy apartment in South Carolina, drinking way too many beers with my roommate every day, watching the World Cup in 96. That was some of the most fascinating and fantastic and frankly, some of the most violent hockey I've ever got to watch in my life. And I loved every second of it, Zach.
Now, you know what? That's not the only rosters that were announced, with the Four Nations face-off. I feel like it was fate for us to be talking about all kinds of history a couple weeks ago with the Nashville Predators, and then to go announce this quarter-century roster. What do you make of that, Charlie?
I think that Thomas Vokoun should have been the second goaltender on there. I heard Chris Mason have that discussion and debate on the broadcast last night with Willie and Hal. And I think that Thomas Vokoun holds a very special place in Predators franchise history. He was the guy that got the team over the hump the first time, got them to the playoffs that first time, won those first two playoff games at Bridgestone Arena, 41 saves back-to-back nights against the Detroit Red Wings in front of 17-1-1-3 that were ready to riot in their seats. I just think Vokoun holds a very special place in franchise history. It would have been nice. UC Saros' work is far from done. He can get the accolades, the mentions, the awards, the all-century, everything later on when he does push Pekka Rinne's records and numbers and all of those things, which I do believe throughout an entirety of his career, he will do so. But yes, other than that, it's hard to really argue with any of the players selected right there. Sully was on there, which was one of the most important to me. You can't argue about a defensive pairing of Weber and Yossi on the first one and Pekka Rinne to start in net. That's a hard argument to try to make right there. But I did think Vokoun deserved his place. And just because I love a good laugh moment on a broadcast, I do wish Chris Mason would have said, I take some umbrage with that second team goaltender. It should have been me.
Here's my thing. I completely agree with you. Saros very well may be on there for the half-century mark in 25 years. And please, the National Predators faithful, I adore UC Saros. UC Saros has yet to win a playoff series. So I don't know if I'm ready to crown him at the top of the mountain there yet. Obviously, first team Pekka Rinne. I will say one name I would have loved to have seen on there. I would have loved to have seen a Scott Hartnell. Maybe in of, a Mike Fisher or a Ryan Johansson or something on there. Two wonderful players in their own right, but not seeing a Scotty Hartnell, not seeing a Jordan Tutu, kind of some of those heart and soul guys who, had grit, but also some offensive talent that really seemed to, just embody the Predator.
Yeah, that's man, that Hartnell is a hard one to argue. One of the top picks in the first couple of seasons there. It's heart and soul of the first generation of the franchise. And certainly he was like the living embodiment of the fan base. And you know what? One of the more remarkable young players the Predators have ever had, because he would just walk around both the concourse and downtown and anywhere there were Predators fans, and he would engage anywhere about the team, about the sport. He was truly a unique individual. His personality is, of course, known across the world. His time in Philly, his time everywhere else outside of Nashville. He was like that in Nashville before anybody else figured it out. And what a gem, man. I couldn't argue about putting Scott Hartnell on any list when it comes to Nashville Predators history.
Now, I'm not sure if this is something we talk about right now or in the future, but my challenge to you is, what if you were putting together a first team Predators villains list of all time? That's where you could really have some fun. Be they former players or adversaries, I think there's a lot of fun to have there.
Yeah, that's now that you've said it, I'll have to start thinking about it. But I'm already seeing names percolating to the top of the list right there. But yeah, absolutely fun. All right, ZMC, listen, we've covered a lot of ground. We've covered what the Preds are up to right now. They're still a seventh place team. It is slimmer than it was, but the chances are not none. And I'm a positive type of guy. I believe you fight no matter what the circumstance is, as long as you're not mathematically eliminated. You keep trying, you keep fighting, you get out there, you take your next shift, you control your energy, your enthusiasm, your attitude, and you just keep working. Will they finish anywhere above seventh place? I have not a clue at this point in time. They're Jekyll and Hyde. They're up and down. They're back and forth. They can score, then they can't score. So I don't know. But what I do know is that we're going to be here in the trenches. We're going to keep covering it. We're going to keep working through it day by day, shift by shift, and we're going to keep the trenches as positive as we can until there's a reason not to. Right now, it's slim, but it's not impossible. So therefore, I'm not the type of person. I'm not a defeatist. I don't give up. Hell, you even saw me play on the blue line the other night for our own hockey club. I may not know what I'm doing out there, but I will throw myself in front of whatever body, puck, play, whatever you got to do to just keep fighting, keep battling, keep yourself alive. Because in the game of hockey, momentum is the craziest thing ever, and you never know when you might just take off and go on some sort of epic, say, 14-game run with points consecutive.
Stranger things have happened. Uncle Mo shows up at the most random times. So
All right, ZMC, let's let you get out of here. Let's get back in the trenches when you get back to your home base. I appreciate you jumping in with us. Always appreciate all your conversation with the Renegades of Puck, your stellar play as my defensive partner this past weekend with the Renegades of Puck Hockey Club. Hey, man, we did what we could. You know what?
We had
a tie game in the third period. We did what we could out there. It's not a position that you should find ZMC and myself in late in the third period of a tied hockey game back there on the blue line trying to hold it down. But neither one of us shot from the fight, the battle. We didn't come out on top, but we sure as hell did try and work it out the best we can. We'll get those guys next time. No doubt about that. ZMC, go enjoy paradise. I look forward to our next conversation about all things Predators and hockey.
Yeah, gentlemen, and a scholar as always. Cap, a pleasure to be part of the Renegades of Puck.